Hey everybody, today we're going to try to take our lesson number 2 to sort of a new level here. Now if you looked on the worksheet that I provided in the last time, there was a question, it was number 29, and it involved finding 3 different pieces of a triangle given a couple of little bits of information. And that's sort of what we're practicing today. So we're not learning a new lesson, we're just taking it to a new level. If you read the directions, it tells you pretty clearly what's going to be different about today. Today it says, solve the triangles. Now, that sounds very vague, like solve the triangle. Well, what do you want me to solve? And that's actually on purpose. When it says solve the triangles, it's basically saying, solve everything. So that means solve for every angle and every side of the triangle. Now there is a little bit of good news. The good news here is today we are only dealing with right triangles. And in a right triangle, you automatically know that one of the angles is going to be 90 degrees. In the case of these problems, all 5 of the problems today, angle C is always going to be 90 degrees. Now tomorrow, that's no longer going to be the case, but we're going to build the foundation now so that when we get into tomorrow's problems, it will be a little bit easier. Now one thing I want to show you, and this is going to be pretty customary. This is something you're going to deal with as you go on with trigonometry in the future. When you take a pre-calculus class, it's going to be this way. It's pretty much always going to be this way. Whenever we're labeling one of these triangles, the capital letters are referring to the angles. The lowercase letters are referring to the sides, and they are always opposite each other. So when you see angle A, and you're curious as to what side A is, it's the one opposite. Same thing goes for angle B. If you want to know where side B is, you go opposite. And then also same thing with C. So that's important to know, because when you get to problems 2 through 5 today, you're going to have to draw the picture for yourself. Okay. All right, so let's jump right in. Solve the triangles, draw each one first, and use the drawing to help you set up the problems. Number 1 is already drawn for you. However, we probably do need to label the information correctly, so I am going to do this. Obviously, that's something you won't be able to do, but I guess you could just write it in anyway. And then right here, it's going to be 61 degrees. All right, so again, when it says solve the triangle, it means you have to give every piece of remaining information. So you have to fill in every remaining blank. So kind of a pain, not going to lie, but we're going to get the job done. Now again, we do have something working for us. It's a right triangle, which means we now know that this is going to be 90 degrees. And then it's not really hard to figure out angle B, because all triangles have to add up to exactly 180 degrees. So if you take the 90 and the 61, we have already used 151 degrees. So if you want to know how many degrees are left, you could just subtract and you'd get 29. So today, when it says solve the triangle, it's going to look really intimidating at first, and then hopefully as we go, you'll realize, well, there's really not that much to it. Okay. Now, in the future, when we're dealing with triangles that are not right triangles, there will be a little bit more to do, but that's okay. All right. So now let's jump in and figure out what we need. Now, based on the picture, and we've done this already for a couple days. Based on the picture, if we want to solve for side B is the adjacent side to the angle that we were given. So we know the opposite side. We want to know the adjacent side. Now if we go back to our cheesy rules from before, we're looking for opposite and adjacent, which means we want to use tangent. So the way we're going to set up our equation is we are going to say the tangent of 61 equals, and then we're going to do opposite over adjacent. So opposite is 25. And then now normally we have just been putting X here, but in this case I'm going to write B because now we have labels, so we might as well be a little more specific. Alright, so we're going to cross multiply here. 1 times 25 is 25, and B times the tangent of 61 is just B times the tangent of 61. And then if we want to actually solve and get what we're looking for, we're going to have to divide both sides by the tangent of 61. All right, let's do that over here as well. All right, now I'm going to bring my calculator into the picture here. Maybe you downloaded it. Maybe you already have a TI whatever calculator. Either way, let's double check our mode. Let's make sure that it is in degree mode instead of radian mode. If it is in radian mode, we are going to get them all wrong, and then we're going to wonder why we got them all wrong, so you definitely don't want to do that. All right, and then in order to solve this, we're going to have to try 25 divided by the tangent of 61. Now, we are expecting B to be smaller than A because the bigger the opposite side, the bigger the angle. They match up with each other. So we get 13.86. All right, so let's put that in the blank for B, 13.86. All right, now, the last thing that we're going to need, we're going to want to figure out side C. So we're going to have to set up the problem again. Now, we still know the opposite side. That didn't change. But this time, if we're going to solve for little c, that is the hypotenuse, which means we want the option that uses opposite and hypotenuse, which means we are going to use sine. Okay, so once again, we're going to set up the problem, but this time we're going to say sine of 61 equals, and we're going to do opposite over hypotenuse. The opposite side was still 25. So if you can't tell, we're sort of just doing the exact same process, but we're just going to use it to find a different side than the one we already had. And this answer, in case you didn't pick up on it, should be bigger than 25. All right, so now we've got c times the sine of 61 equals 25. And if we want to solve, we're going to divide both sides by the sine of 61. So we'll bring the calculator back into play. You're not really going to be able to go very far without it. And now we're going to do 25 divided by the sine of 61. Now again, common sense alert. Because c is the hypotenuse, it should be the biggest side of all. It should be bigger than 25. So let's double check, and sure enough, looks good to me. 28.58. All right, so that takes care of that problem. Just as a little bit of a compromise, I'm going to start problem number 2. I'm not going to do the whole thing for you, but I'm going to start it. And I'll have you do the last part of 2, and then 3, 4, and 5. All right, now, what I really want you to focus on as you begin problem number 2, I want you to do the drawing for number 2. Okay? Now, if you look, it says angle B is 10 degrees. Okay? That's going to be a pretty tiny angle here. So when we're doing our drawing, I would expect there to be a very tiny 10-degree angle right there. In fact, it's so small, I don't actually have room to write the number 10, so I'm going to have to just sneak it in right there. Okay, and then it says side C is 19. Okay, so that means we're going to have big A is the angle. You can write it inside, you can write it outside, it doesn't really matter. Then little a is going to be that side. And then we've got little b over here. So when it says solve the triangle, once again, you're looking for every angle and every side. And every triangle that we do today is going to be a right triangle, which means every triangle is going to have the angles pretty much given to you to some extent. Either because you know it's a right angle or because you know how to subtract. I like your odds on both. So again, we're talking about angle C being a right angle, so that's going to be 90 degrees. Get used to that setup where you have the capital letters and the lowercase letters opposite each other, because that, again, that's something you're going to see pretty much forever. And then you've got 80 degrees right here. So again, I told you I was going to help you start problem number 2, and then you're going to finish it. So let's just go in order and let's solve for little a. In this problem with little a, the thing that we know is the hypotenuse, and the thing that we want to know, if we're solving for little a, that is the adjacent side. So we know the hypotenuse, we want to know the adjacent. That means we are going to use cosine, because based on our rules from before, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. All right, so that means the way we're going to set this up is we're going to do cosine of 10 equals, and then we have to use the order from the trig ratio. So adjacent goes on top, hypotenuse goes on bottom. Adjacent is going to be a, little a. Hypotenuse is going to be 19. We're going to cross multiply here. This is my favorite type of problem because 1 times a is just a, and 19 times the cosine of 10 is 19 cosine of 10. Which means all you have to do on your calculator, you don't have to divide at all you have to do is multiply, and so you're just going to say, what is 19 times the cosine of 10? 18.71. Which makes pretty good sense, because that is a very, very tiny angle, and because it's a very tiny angle, A is going to be pretty long, and B is going to be pretty short. So that's kind of your hint. Side B should be really tiny. I'm not going to give it to you, but side B should turn out to be pretty tiny because side A turned out to be so big. Okay. All right, so what I want from you is to finish problem number 2 and then just keep on going through the rest of it. I hope this helps give you a good jump start. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other.